that baby needs something. It's disturbing my psyche. I'm like, oh my God, what if she's frustrated? Oh, I don't know if it's a she or a he. But she was really crying.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Wonderful Scientist Podcast. This is your host, Sarah Nyakeri, and today I have Ian Peter. I don't know how to say the second name, or maybe I'm lazy to say the second name. Could you say your name?
Busuulwa.
Busuulwa, yes.
Yes.
I wanted to say that, but I was like, what if I... I really don't like saying the wrong name about... I don't know. I feel like names are very sensitive.
Yeah.
Yeah. So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And thanks for accepting this invite. So I'm really excited about what we're going to talk about in this conversation. So maybe for someone who doesn't know you, could you introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Ian Peter Busuulwa, 25-year-old Ugandan. I am a science communicator. That's how I like to identify myself. But by training, I'm a biotechnologist, currently pursuing a Master of Science in Biotechnology.
Awesome. Yeah. I think that's the part that I was really interested in, the science communication bit. That's why I was like, I need to talk to this guy who has a science background and is now in science communication. Like,
yeah,
that's really amazing. So I'm excited about that. So could you take us through how you got into science? Like you journey, maybe I don't know where you want to start, maybe your high school or primary, whatever you want to start. Just take us through you growing up or anything. Just let us in to whatever place you want to let us into.
yeah. So I don't think for my case it was really much of a choice.
Wow.
Reason being, in my country, Uganda, I don't know if it's the same for other African countries. There are certain professions that parents are very familiar with, so they always ask their children to do those kinds of courses. So that is either a lawyer, an engineer, a teacher, or a doctor. So it's always around that. So for my case, it happens that my parents really wanted me to be a doctor, a medical doctor. So all my choices were really following up that. They tried to introduce me to the hospital very early on. I used to visit the theater in my high school, even participate in some of these operations, all in a bid to get me to do medicine at campus. So I loved science, honestly. I loved science. And the thing is, our education system, you do all the courses first, and then you get to select what you want to do at high school level. So I did all these chemistry, physics, math, history, some languages, literature at the O-level section. And then for high school, that's when I now decided to choose biology, chemistry, and mathematics.
Okay.
I did that for 2 years. So the hope was that I would get medicine. But after the final exams, when the selections were made, I found I had been given biotechnology at Makerere University. So at the time, biotechnology was really a very new field in Uganda. So there are a few people I could talk to find out what these guys really do. Luckily, one of our family friend, who is a medical doctor, incidentally, had some friends who had an idea about biotechnology. So I talked to them, and they kind of gave me a picture of what I expect to do, the kind of career path I expect to follow, and it was quite exciting. So I went on to do biotechnology at the university. So at the time I joined biotechnology, the whole debate of GMOs was really a very hot thing here in Uganda. So they were trying to get parliament to pass that time it was called the National Biotechnology and Biosafety Bill, which basically was aimed at regulating GM crops. So there was this huge debate. And the funny thing was that I felt like the students who were studying this course were left out. And that was largely because really had no kind of formal organization. We were just studying. So our voice wasn't really part of the debate. That time I was in year 1. That was 2016. So at the time, I worked with a few other students, and we mobilized ourselves into a society, which was called the Makerere University Biotechnology Society. So with this form of organization, we now got a chance to participate in the whole debate of GM crops and genetic engineering. We participated in all these review meetings with the members of parliament, policymakers, and these technical committees of parliament trying to review the bill. So that's how my interest in this whole world of communication and policy really came from. So from that point onwards, I really found myself a lot in these spaces. Literally anything that came up that involved policy, I always found myself trying to get in there. At the time, as when I learned of the March for Science, which is an event that was initiated in New York. So with this new society, we got to mobilize for our country here. We got students and they marched on the streets of Kampala, holding placards and banners, asking the policymakers to consider science, but more specifically to think about the genetic engineering bill. So my involvement with that kind of got me along this whole career path of now deciding to do science communication and science policy. So most of my involvement at the university was voluntary, trying to help those who are already doing this work to mobilize youth and students. So after campus, I got to join them now professionally and work alongside them. At the time, I joined the Uganda Biosciences Information Center, which is an information hub of the National Agricultural Research Organization, NARO. So these guys here were largely communicating agricultural research, but because NARO was at the forefront of doing research in genetic engineering, we found ourselves also advocating for that technology in terms of policy. So I was at the intersection of both policy and communication, though based on agricultural research. Around the same time, I came across a lady called Patricia Nanteza. At the time, she was working with one of the NARO institutes called Kawanda, the National Agricultural Research Laboratories, Kawanda, where most of urban research is done. So at the time she was mobilizing for a project by the Alliance for Science.
Cornell.
Whereby the whole idea was Cornell Alliance for Science. Though of late they dropped the Cornell name, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, so the idea of the project was to train scientists to communicate their research through storytelling. So she wanted fronted the public to appreciate the people behind the science. So we got the scientists, they have all these scientific presentations in their head. They know how to present their papers in the conference setup, and we're like, people think science is hard. People think science is boring. People don't know who's doing the things they're consuming.
Yeah.
So she came up with that idea, and at the time she was looking for someone still to help her mobilize students and the youth. And I happened to have been leading that association of the students at Makerere University. So I got to work with her at the very first event in 2019. And ever since then, I took on more active roles in her project. And that's how I found myself working very closely with that project. So after campus, I worked with Science Stories Africa and also with NARO's information hub, UBIC. And that's where most of my experience in science communication and science policy was really groomed, and I've been working there, I think, since 2019 till to date. I've been working with those two organizations, yeah. So over that period, Science Stories Africa has organized 3 events, 2 in Uganda, 1 in Nairobi, Kenya. We were there last August. It was August, yeah. We were there in August. This year we're organizing another still in Kenya and I think Nigeria. Then for UBIC, we've really engaged a lot of farmers. We've reviewed the bill very many times. And I've grown from volunteering my time as a student to now being an advocacy and dissemination lead of the same organization, which is really quite exciting. So in all that mix, in June last year, actually way earlier than that, I think it was around April, Jinko Bioworks announced a fellowship, a policy fellowship.
Who?
Where they wanted...
Who?
Jinko Bioworks.
Jinko.
Yes, Jinko Bioworks is a synthetic biology company based in Boston in the US.
Okay.
Yes, so I'll explain more about what they do.
It's okay.
Yeah, so they announced a public policy fellowship where they wanted those who had a policy idea they wanted to work on to apply. So at the time, I was really very much active in advocating for the biotech bill here in Uganda. So I applied with that idea that I wanted to work on new strategies to really get this bill across the line for it to become a law. So I got selected for that fellowship. It was from June to September. So that's when I now got introduced to another aspect of biotechnology, which is called synthetic biology. This is where biotechnology is done with a lot of automation, a lot of computer engineering. And Jinko Bioworks being a leader in this space was really a very good opportunity to learn about this whole new field of science from the top guys in that field. And also the other thing that the fellowship did was that them being a leader in that space, they always discussed biotechnology from a global point of view. It wasn't the same thing which I was accustomed to in Uganda, but you only discuss the bill in the context of Uganda. And once in a while, you discuss what that means for Africa.
Yeah.
Now, for them, almost every product they're thinking of, every policy they're thinking of, they're asking themselves, how does this affect the rest of the world beyond the US, Africa, and the rest of the world? So I came back home with that thinking. How does all the things I care about, the policies I'm thinking about, how do they resonate to the rest of the world?
You go on.
Around that same time, during the fellowship
talking.
at Jinko.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I thought you had disappeared, but yeah.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. So around the same time, during the fellowship at Jinko, I came across a community of synthetic biologists here in Uganda. And interestingly, that was the very first time I was hearing about it. Yet these guys have been here for over 3 years, Synbio Africa. At the time, they were organizing the very first synthetic biology conference for Africa. So I volunteered my time with them and took on a more active role in science communication and helping them organize the conference. And ever since then, I've been part of that community, Synbio Africa. And this year, April, they took on an initiative to build capacity for African countries to combat pandemics, what they're calling global catastrophic biological risks. So I'm working now with Synbio Africa, NARO, and Science Stories Africa. Still in the same discussion at Jinko Bioworks, I got to learn of a new term called the bioeconomy. That's where now we are thinking of biotechnology in terms of money and in terms of what this means for the economy in terms of the revenues and in terms of jobs. So when I got introduced to the idea of the bioeconomy, I realized that probably this is something we were lacking in our advocacy back home, whereby we're promoting GM crops largely on the science of the scientific benefits. That, for example, if you're having a disease-resistant banana, yes, you have banana that is not sick in your garden. But I don't think we're driving home the whole point of what does this mean in terms of money. How many jobs are you expecting to create if you're no longer having the bacteria wilt killing the bananas? And how much revenue are you getting into the farmers' pockets, into the government's pockets, and any other person that really cares about the whole value chain of the banana? That's something I felt that we're really driving home. So I worked together with another organization called CIFOD, and we came up with the Bioeconomy Coalition of Uganda with the whole aim of championing biotech with an economic eye. So at the moment, I'm involved with the Bioeconomy Coalition of Uganda, Synbio Africa, Science Stories Africa, and UBIC. But all that was happening as I was doing my master's in biotechnology, which I'm soon completing in August. Wow, that was very fast.
Wow. That was a handful. I don't know. It's an interesting journey, and I think you have been involved in science communication in a very wide aspect. So my question is, let's start in the beginning. Whatever you said before, that parents, especially the African setup, I think they tend to want their kids to excel, right? And the things that they know that makes them excel is the science courses, including being a doctor. And it's also very common to hear people say that, yes, I wanted to do medicine. Then I got myself into this bio something course. It has to be a bio something course.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you find a lot of people go into that not knowing what it was. And I like that you brought up the aspect where it was still a new course and people were still figuring out what is going on, and you were trying to figure out, okay, so I've done biotechnology, then what, right?
Yeah.
So I think the question here is, what did the other people who you schooled with in biotechnology go into? Or how was that transition like, moving from this new course in biotechnology into the market?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that really attracted me to biotechnology is that there's something for everyone. There's usually something for every talent the person has. So in my case, I fell in love with communication and policy. So I'm still doing biotech, but with a bias to that.
Yeah.
And there are those who really loved the laboratory, and they're continuing with that. So these are found themselves working in pharmaceutical industries. Others are working in cosmetic companies. Some are doing quality assurance in these beverage industries. And there are some who loved the IT bit of it. Because at undergraduate, you get exposed to all these courses, the bioinformatics, the biomanufacturing, the plant science of it, the virology and all that. So it's like everyone has chosen something they fell in love with, and they have walked down that path.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of friends who are in the lab, others are in bioinformatics, others are doing quality assurance management of that kind. And then a few have come to join me in policy and communication.
Okay, amazing. That's great to hear, because here in Kenya we hear a lot of people who they don't know what to do. Yes, they wanted to go in to pursue their career more into bio-related stuff, but they never get a chance to do that because of the paucity when it comes to opportunities related to research, or I don't know, things that they can use from their I don't know, degrees. So I'm glad to hear that there isn't a problem like that in Uganda. Like, people actually grow into careers that they switch into careers that they actually want to. Like, there's that variety of things that they can go to, and no one is stuck somewhere.
Well, Sarah, the variety is there, but still employment is still an issue for many of these countries. So it really comes down to how people prepare for their life after campus. Yeah,
So-
because it was really a tough time for many people. Yeah.
So how did you navigate that? Like, after you finished your biotechnology course, what were you thinking at that moment? Apart from yes, you're already involved. That's what you said, that you're already involved in science communication things, right? Did I get that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yes, you did.
okay, so the question is, so it was easier for you to know where you want to go, right?
Yeah, yes.
How did you find yourself in Naro?
Oh, okay. So that organization I joined after campus, the Uganda Biosciences Information Center,
UBIC.
way before I finished the degree, yes, UBIC, they always had youth engagement activities. So they always mobilized students, youth across the country to participate in activities meant to inform them of what's happening in the field of research, especially biotech. So these were ranging from student essay competitions to debates to they had biotech movie screenings. They had these conferences to discuss biotech. So a lot of these things kept coming up. So since I was a student leader of a biotechnology society, I always found myself working with them to mobilize my fellow students and students in other universities. So I had this kind of close working relationship with the guys there, that as my degree was coming to an end, I reached out to them to see if they had any opening for someone to join them. So that's when I got to join UBIC at the time.
Okay, so this was through networks, right?
Yes, networking.
Okay, so how did you move to Naro?
So UBIC is under Naro.
Oh,
So
okay.
yes, UBIC is an information communication hub of Naro.
And NARO is National Agricultural Research Organization. Am I wrong?
Yes, it is. Yeah, you're right.
Did I hear
You're
you
right.
mouth it? Should we confirm? I feel like confirming. How do you say that?
You're right. That's Naro in full.
National Agriculture, NARO Uganda.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm weird like that. So, yeah, National Agricultural Research Organization. So, what does it do, really?
Organization. Yeah.
What does it do?
So it oversees agricultural research in the entire country. So most of the research in agriculture is done by NARO, both for livestock and for plants.
Okay, so it's like Calro here,
Yes.
I think, because it's a government thing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's like Calro in Kenya.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, great. So they have a vibrant communication sector where now that's the UBIC, right? And that's the one
yes.
that you. So, what was your role, the first role, as when you got the opportunity?
So
What was the name of your role?
I joined initially. I was referred to as an outreach assistant, though it was largely a voluntary position. Only that it was a bit of paid volunteering.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was paid how do you call that? Paid volunteering position. Yeah, as a volunteer, but a volunteer who gets facilitated to do some of these activities.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Then, how long did you stay there?
I've been with UBIC since 2019.
Oh, you're
Till
still
now, I'm
there.
still part of them.
Oh, well, you finished
Yes.
school in 2019, 2018,
Yeah.
2019.
2019. Yes.
Okay, great. So since 2019 up to now, you're still part of you're still an outreach volunteer?
No, I'm now advocacy and dissemination lead.
Oh, so you got a permanent job there.
Yeah.
The reason why I'm asking these questions, I know they're very weird questions to ask, but the reason why I'm asking this question is because people really don't talk about their positions and how they go up throughout their careers, and someone might be trying to figure out how they want to do that. So it's good to hear, how did someone else navigate that? Tell me if I'm wrong. From what my understanding to where we are right now in terms of your career path, you got into this biotechnology course. You tried to figure out what it is by asking questions. Then there was this thing that was going on, trying to get a bill to be a law when it comes to GMO in Uganda, and the National Agricultural Research Organization there had a communication bit called the UBIC that was trying to involve the students in the discussions when it came to that.
Yeah.
And you happened to be... But then how did you get this leadership position?
I founded the society. I started the association along with other colleagues.
Oh. Wait, so how did you know what to start?
In my high school, I had been a leader. I had been a president, a student president in my high school. So when I joined university in my year one, this discussion started informally with my colleagues. They're like, we need to do something about this. So I found a few willing friends of mine within the same course, and we started this. We formulated the constitution, the articles, and sold the idea to our fellow students. We looked for a patron from one of the lecturers. We got this registered, and
Wow,
that's
what's
how we
the name?
started. Yeah.
What's the name?
Makerere University Biotechnology Society.
And it's the one that you're still involved with right now, right?
No, it's a students' body. So when my time was done, I had to hand over to the.
Yeah, but there's a way you're still involved in that. Do you support it in some sort of way? I don't know.
Yes. I still work with them in case they need some guidance or they're looking for some people to facilitate some activities. I always help them out.
Well, that's a really good achievement if you really think about it. Like, that's a big thing when it comes to you founding something and bringing people together and making it one. It's still there up to now and it's making impact. Like, that's just amazing.
Thank you. Yeah.
So now you founded an organization. Then this communication part of Anaro reached out to you, or what happens? I didn't get that.
Yeah, so after co-founding this organization, so we look for an entry point into this space, into this advocacy bit. So incidentally, the players are well known. We have Cypher, we have UBIC. At the time, we also had 3D, we had PBS, Program for Biosafety Systems. Cypher, the Science Foundation for Livelihoods and Development, and UBIC. So these organizations are really at the forefront of advocating for this. So as we were trying to organize the March for Science, we reached out to all these people we felt could join us. So that's how we really got a lot involved in their activities. So it's like we filled the gap they really had, and that's the gap of mobilizing youth into this entire campaign of advocating for the bill. So it always became easy in case they had activities to simply call up the society. Society talks to other biological students in other universities across the country, and we come together and participate in these activities. So from then going forward, it really became easy to be thought of that actually students and the youth generally have a voice in this whole entire debate.
Amazing. So after that, that's when you finished school. Then, since you already had created a network there, you went and asked if they have a position, and you got a volunteer, though it was a bit with some money. I didn't understand that though. So what happened?
It's like paid internship. So you're not a full-time employee, but you're being compensated for some of your time.
Okay. So what happens after that? Take us through from there.
So we had, COVID came in, was it March 2020? So for a very long time, like 7 months, it was like a dark period, For us at the time, it's like government stopped all these outreach activities. So UBIC being a communication hub, most of our activities are actually outreach activities. We're engaging farmers, stakeholders, policymakers, all this kind of thing. So we had a really long gap. And around that time, we had a change of leadership. The founding coordinator of UBIC took on another senior role in Naro. She became a director of research of one of the research institutes. And then some of the people we were working with, some went back to school. They went for master's studies abroad. So we had really to reassemble a team. Yes, so around that time now, that's when I moved from this outreach assistant position to now helping out with now bringing in a new crop of guys to help us out with outreach activities. So being the only veteran there, I found myself really assuming a leadership position. Yeah.
Now I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
So you are the now leader.
Yes.
Amazing.
I'm not the coordinator. We have a coordinator. I'm below the coordinator. I'm like, what? Vice? The next
vice coordinator.
the next rank. but the specific title is advocacy and dissemination lead. Okay. So
amazing.
Supervising the rest of the team to do this work.
I like your journey. It's very interesting. Like, you come from school, then you get this volunteership, then you found yourself as the only person remaining, then you get this leadership role.
Yeah.
Amazing. Like, it's just interesting how your path has been weaved unknowingly.
Yeah.
So the next question is, so what happens after that? Like, how do you know about Nantenza? Like, how did you meet? Because I'm assuming that's how you got connected into this other thing.
Yeah. Yes, you're right about that. So while I was still at the university, I think I was about a month away from finishing up the undergraduate course. At the time, Patricia was looking for...
Oh, when you were a volunteer with UBIC?
I didn't
before.
Before.
Okay.
Just right before I joined UBIC.
Okay, my bad.
It was about a month before finishing up my undergraduate. So at the time, I was helping my successors in terms of leading the society. That time now they were organizing a March for Science for that year. That was 2019, yes, 2019. So I was helping them mobilize resources. So being that I've been part of the society for a long time, so I had these contacts with all the other guys. I was trying to reach out to these people to help my successors mobilize for that event. So how I was doing the fundraising, I was really reaching out to those I know are passionate about biotechnology, asking them to contribute anything in kind or in cash. So around the time the person I talked to was called Nasib. Nasib at the time was an outreach officer with UBIC. So Nasib says, oh, I know someone who's really interested in this kind of work, Patricia. So Nasib introduced me to Patricia. So when I got to meet Patricia to pick the donation to the March for Science, Patricia introduces the project she was starting, the Science Stories Africa. And she tells me she needed help with mobilizing students to attend the event. So given that I was done with my final exams, I was almost done with campus, I was like, I can do this. So that's how I joined Science Stories Africa as a student mobilizer.
Okay.
Yes, so as soon as I joined Science Stories Africa, we did the first event in Kampala, National Theatre. So given that I really had a lot of time on my hands, me not being a fresh graduate, I ended up taking up other roles. So I became a digital communications person for Science Stories Africa. So slowly I got into the administrative work to a point that now I'm a project administrator there, managing the budgets, recruiting the speakers and the service providers. So I grew within the role to a more senior role within the same arrangement, just like I grew in UBIC.
I love that you became part of something that was starting.
Yeah.
And you took up roles. Like, do you feel that you being part of Science Stories Africa when it was still young grew you as a human being when it comes to the skills that you can perform? Like, have nothing to do with science. Apart from the communication aspect, like the administrative stuff, the coordinating, communicating with the different people, thinking about what to do. Like...
Yeah, actually, Patricia has been a very, very good mentor, both in terms of the administrative side of it, but also the science communication, because she's really a very good science communicator. Yeah, she's now working with the Alliance for Science, I think, full-time, with their training bit of Africa. She's in charge of training for the Alliance.
Yeah.
So she has really trained me a lot in science communication, the do's and don'ts, and yeah. So she has mentored me both administratively in trying to manage the Science Stories Africa activities and also the science communication bit, because she's also equally good at that.
Okay, great. Those are very great skills, by the way. So, let's talk about Synbio. So, how did you get into that?
Yeah, so...
Because now already you're with Science Stories Africa, right? At that time.
Yeah.
And you're still part of UBIC.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you a question about navigating all that, but how did you get now into Synbio?
Yes, one of the things I love about science communication is that I can be in multiple places at the same time, almost. You can, because, for example, Science Stories Africa now, we have events. So there's always a bit of time between events. We organize events for like 2 months. We look for the speakers, we train them, we take them to the theater, we produce these videos and publicize them. So that's something that doesn't really take me away from my day job. It's like dedicating a few hours of my day each of these 2 months, each day of these 2 months. We get this done and we get back to our normal, should I call them permanent jobs?
Which is now UBIC.
Yeah, which is UBIC in this case. So that's how I was able to balance these two.
Okay.
So for Synbio Africa, I get
Do you want to
get
cough?
introduced to. No, I'm good now.
Do you want water? As if I'll give you.
I have a bottle of water. Let me get water here. Sorry.
Questions.
I'm good now.
Okay.
Thank you. So I got introduced to Synbio Africa through my fellowship time with Ginkgo Bioworks. As I was explaining in the
Let's
monologue
stop
I
there.
had earlier. Yeah.
Let's pause there. I'm not getting that name. Ginkgo.
Ginkgo. It is G-I. Though you hear Ginkgo Biloba, so this is Ginkgo Bioworks.
J or G?
G for girl.
Uh-huh.
So G-I-N-K.
Bioworks.
Then G-O. So Ginkgo.
Oh.
Then Bioworks.
I've never heard of it.
I wish the clean feed had like a chat option and I just type for you this.
Oh yeah.
This
Oh
name.
my god.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's a studio that has that, but I don't like the audio that comes out of it. Plus, it has money to it, so I don't have money.
Yeah.
But anyway, this is good enough. Sorry about that. I wish we could.
It's fine. So it's
could
Ginkgo.
Yeah, I've seen
okay.
it. I've seen it. I've Googled. I'm a Googler. Trust me.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
Ginkgo.
was about to type it here in LinkedIn.
Yeah, I've seen it. It's headquartered in
Alright.
Boston. It says most
Yes.
advanced technology on the planet, biology to grow better products. Yeah.
Yeah. So, in my earlier monologue, I mentioned that Ginkgo put out a call for a public policy fellowship. And the idea was that in case you're thinking of a policy idea that is related to biology generally, you propose it and you apply to be mentored by their team for a period of 3 months. That was from June to September last year.
Okay.
And it was the very first time they were organizing the fellowship. Interestingly, it's Patricia who notified me of that call for applications.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I think she was on Twitter and she saw this and she tagged me in the tweet. I was like, okay, this is something I can apply for. I applied. And luckily I was selected to be part of the inaugural class for that fellowship. So that fellowship introduced me to this field called synthetic biology. Whereby they're doing the same biotechnology I know, only that they're applying a lot of engineering and computer and AI, and it's a lot of automation in their own processes. So much as my work there was policy related, I also learned about what they're doing in their labs by default. So while there, I got to learn of what's happening in this space across the globe. I got to learn of terms like iGEM. That's when I got to hear that we have a group in Uganda called Synbio Africa. And I'm like, wow, interesting. Because I'd been in advocacy for biotechnology since 2016. And these are also a more or less biotech group, and I'd never heard of them. And we are doing a lot of amazing work. I was like, I have to talk to these guys. So I reached out to their founder, Geoffrey. I had a brief call with him. We discussed what ideas we could implement. It being a really scientific community, they needed a lot of support in communications, and I happened to really have some time on my hands. So I was like, okay, I'd be glad to really help out. They're organizing a conference, so I helped them think through their whole communications bit for the conference. So I joined Synbio Africa as a volunteer still. took up a position on their executive committee, handling their policy and communication strategies. So we helped them with the conference. I hosted the conference, helped them managing the publication of the report. So around April this year, that's when now they got a grant to implement the Global Catastrophic Biological Risks Initiative. And that's when I now take up a more or less paid position as a project officer for policy and communications for that initiative.
Okay.
So there's always been this pattern of first you giving your time free of charge.
Yeah. That's what I was actually thinking about it. That's why I kept quiet. I was like,
and then, when opportunity knocks,
free, then you're given that opportunity.
Yes, and yeah. I learned that principle largely from Patricia's team. Because there's this thing, people always want to be given.
Yeah.
Or sometimes people ask, what can they give? Because they assume they have to give in terms of money. But then she was like, even if you just give time or your skills or, what you're giving. And the hand that gives, it's the hand that receives,
Yeah.
So I've always found myself always willing to volunteer, especially for things I'm passionate about. So when Synbio Africa comes up and they have this conference, I fell in love with synthetic biology, bioeconomy. I was like, I have time, I can do this. And it being a community, they always met in after work hours. So it was quite easy to catch up with their activities. Yeah.
Amazing. Let's just start to sit in. Let's start to sit.
I feel like you're almost putting sound effects to the podcast, like a movie.
No sound effects.